Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. A good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. A hired man who is not a shepherd and whose sheep are not his own sees a wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away. And the wolf catches and scatters them. This is because he works for pay and has no concern for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and I know mine, and mine know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. I will lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. These also I must lead, and they will hear my voice, and there will be one flock, one shepherd. This is why the Father loves me, because I lay down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own. I have power to lay it down, and power to take it up again.
I don't want to.
This command I have received from my Father. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Every fourth Sunday of Easter, for the Gospel, the Church gives us a portion of the Gospel of St. John where Jesus speaks of himself as the Good Shepherd. That is why every fourth Sunday of Easter is nicknamed Good Shepherd Sunday. At the same time, on Good Shepherd Sunday, the Church marks a time where she calls the entire Church to pray for vocations. Vocations to the priesthood, vocations to the consecrated religious life, and vocations to the married life. Now, what does this all have to do with each other? The Good Shepherd, vocations, and happiness. Those three things the Church tells us today are intertwined. They have something each to do with one another. The Good Shepherd, vocations, and happiness in life. Today, Jesus identifies and gives us the definition of what a good shepherd is. He says, a good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. And he compares it to the bad shepherd or the hired hands. And he says, the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep when danger comes. But the bad shepherd, when the wolves come, the bad shepherd leaves the sheep behind. They look out for themselves first, and they leave the rest of the sheep behind to be caught by the wolves and scattered by the wolves. But he reiterates, but I'm a good shepherd, and I lay down my life willingly. He says, no one makes me lay down my life. I do it of my own free will. And so he says, that's the definition of what a good shepherd is. A good shepherd is someone who lays down his life for the sheep. Good shepherd is someone who spends his life for another. And if you understand that's the definition of what a good shepherd is, then you can understand why today of all days the church focuses on vocations. The word vocation, remember, is from the Latin word vocare, meaning calling. It's a calling. Calling from whom? Calling from the Good Shepherd. And Jesus says, my sheep know me and I know them. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them and they know me. And so the Good Shepherd calls his sheep, all of us, to follow him. To copy him, to imitate him, to do what? To lay down our lives also for others. And that's why the church today focuses on vocations. Because the church tells us if we answer the call of the Good Shepherd, we will be called in each particular vocation to lay down our lives for another. And by doing that, we will experience fulfillment in life. I just want you to think about what you hear sometimes on the news, especially the superstars, not all of them, but unfortunately many of them. They seem to have all the wealth in the world, the fame that anybody would want. They seem to have the popularity. They seem to have everything that this world offers to make you happy. And yet, what do we oftentimes hear about these superstars? They're not happy. And unfortunately, some of them get into trouble, get into drugs and illicit sexual relationships, and they even sometimes commit suicide. Because from the outside, they seem like they have everything that anyone would ever want. And yet on the inside, they feel empty. Why is that? Because the Lord teaches us that because all of us were created to love, because God is love. And loving means to do good for other people. So if we live a life where we are always selfish, we will never be happy. No matter how much stuff you have, no matter how popular you may be, you will never be happy and you will never feel fulfilled and satisfied with your life. That's why there's people who don't have much of anything and are happy because they have learned to live for others. Not to be selfish and egotistical and thinking about their own needs and wants all the time, but that they place the needs and wants of others ahead of their own. And that's why these three particular vocations are highlighted today on Good Shepherd Sunday. Priesthood, religious life, and the married life. Because the church says to us that each of these particular vocations in the church have a specific way of showing the church and the world how to spend your lives for others. And by doing that, finding fulfillment. So first of all, priesthood. The priest is asked by the church to spend his life for the people. And that's why in the Catholic Church, our priests are not married, because we are married to the church. And because we are married to the church, and the people are the church, then the priest is asked by the church to set aside his own personal wants and desires in order to serve the people. And in that way, he dies to himself. And in that way, then he lives for others. He lives for the sheep. In a very clear way, the priest is asked to be a very specific embodiment of Christ, the Good Shepherd. To tend the sheep through teaching and preaching, through blessing and sanctifying, celebrating the sacraments, and by governing, by leading. And in that way, then, he shows the people what it looks like that Jesus spends his life for them. Next, we have consecrated religious, sisters and brothers, monks and nuns, who dedicate the entirety of their life to the evangelical counsels. These are the vows, and they're called evangelical because they promote the good news, the evangelion. That through the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, religious testify to the goodness of the gospel. How do they do that? Well, first of all, their vow of poverty. They don't own anything personally. Why don't they own anything personally? And what good news is that supposed to teach us? Consecrated religious don't own anything personally. And in that radical way of living, because that's very strange to us, even us Catholics. What, you don't own anything? Yeah. Well, what does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what that means. You know, we have 4 Dominican sisters who live here. 3 of them work for our Catholic school here. 1 works for a bunch of parishes and the school in Victoria. They get paid like anybody else. Except when we pay them, we don't put their names on the paycheck. The paycheck says to the order of the Dominicans, and it's sent to Houston, the mother house. They don't see it. Well, what do they do for the necessities? They ask for it. And the mother house in Houston will send what they need. And each sister gets an allowance each month. $50. That's their allowance. To give them the freedom to spend. And I tell you, those sisters oftentimes don't spend on themselves. They spend that $50 saying masses for the dead. They spend those $50 buying candy for the kids that they teach, or school supplies. Even the allowance they receive, they end up spending on somebody else. They don't own that house, the parish owns that house. They don't own the car they drive, the parish owns that car. We have to provide it. So there is a temporal benefit, because while most of us have to pay taxes recently, religious don't have to pay taxes because they don't own anything. So that is a perk. They don't have to do anything to their cars, and when things break down, they call us. We call Mr. Tim down. Their car's broken, Tim. Okay? And so they don't own anything. Now, what is the joy of the gospel that they're teaching us through poverty? They're teaching us that happiness and fulfillment in life can be obtained without owning a thing. Very literally, very radically. I know that's hard for us. Now, if you're not called to the religious life, you have to own things because you have another calling to fulfill. But for the religious, the radical teaching they're giving us through their vow of poverty is that you can be happy and fulfilled by not owning a thing in life. The only thing we need to possess is God. Second vow is chastity, or not getting married, celibacy. And what does that vow, which I also take, what is that vow? What is the joy of the gospel that is proclaimed by that vow? The joy of that message of that vow is, no matter how good your human relationships are, no matter how good any other relationship you may have, your work relationship, your extended family relationship, no matter how good that is, there is one relationship that will ultimately fulfill us. That without it, those other relationships are actually not as meaningful. That's our relationship with God. You see, the vow of chastity and celibacy proclaims what St. Augustine beautifully teaches us. Oh God, you have made us for yourself, and our souls are restless unless they rest in you. So unless you rest in the Lord, unless you have a firm relationship with the Lord, no matter what other relationships you may have in the world, you'll be restless. And so the celibate teaches us that lesson, that you can be fulfilled. You can be fulfilled without all these other relationships if you have one relationship alone with God. And then finally, the vow of obedience. The vow of obedience is the most fundamental vow because it strikes at the heart of who we are as fallen human beings. How did we fall the first time? It was because Adam and Eve tried to exert their personal will over God's will. My way, not yours, God. The vow of obedience flips it around. Your will be done, God, not mine. The vow of obedience echoes what Jesus said in the Garden of Gethsemane. Lord, let this cup pass from me, but not my will, but yours be done. You see, in our life, especially here in American society, we teach our kids to be themselves. Stand up for yourself. Look out for yourself. Be kind to yourself. I sometimes wonder if we have overdone that. That now we are encountering a generation of before other people. And if you think like that, and if you practice that you practice loving and being generous towards other people first before yourself, you will be ready to answer the call whenever Jesus calls you. Whether it's to priesthood, or religious life, or the married life. You have to learn how to not be selfish first. Because think about it. What if you don't learn the lesson and you become a priest? And someone calls and they need you. And you say, I don't have time for you. I want to go watch TV. No, that's selfish. Or, I don't have time for you. I'd rather go play soccer. I plan on working out. I don't have time for you. That's selfish. And if you are called to be a religious, and you're supposed to do things in community, and you say, no, I'm going to stay in my room. I'd rather watch YouTube. I don't have time to come and pray with the community. That's selfishness. And in the married life especially, that won't work. But if you become a husband, and your wife and your family need you for something, no, I have my hobby. I'd rather go drive my fancy cars around. I'd rather go do this. I go fishing. You can't do that. And so right now, in your young age, the best way to prepare for God calling you is to learn how to care for other people and to be generous to other people first before yourselves. That's why you have families, so that you can already start practicing that. And the first people I propose, children, that you practice with is your own parents. You know, a lot of kids say, no, my parents, they're supposed to do things for me. Well, guess what? You're supposed to do things for them. Children, listen. You're supposed to do things for your parents. And there you learn how to serve. And why do you have brothers and sisters? Because God wants you to learn how to be generous to other people. I know sometimes it's not easy to have brothers and sisters, but that's how you learn. And so today Jesus teaches us he is a good shepherd who lays down his life for us. And he is the example for all of us to follow. Whether you're a priest, whether you're religious, whether you're married. All three vocations seek the same thing. It seeks to show the church and the world Jesus, who is generous with us and who lays down his life for the sheep. And that's us.